Good morning, everybody. Welcome into another edition of the Sac City Podcast. I am your host, the one and only Vinny Milani, joined as always by my best friend in the whole entire world. He is Aaron the Mukesiah Mukes. And below us, we have the reigning, the defending, the undisputed heavyweight valedictorian of the show. He is Dylan Kearns. And you know what? I don't want to forget, Dylan, you have the valedictorian title, but I have kind of slipped and not mentioned you as the smoothest voice in sportscasting. That doesn't go away because your voice is oh so smooth. And joining us on that Spectrum Internet, once again, it is AJ Johnson.
Dylan? On the spectrum.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
I'm on the spectrum.
It is a beautiful July 13th morning here in the city. Episode 53 is about to kick off. We are diving into the AFC East and their fantasy outlook. That's the Jets. That's the Patriots. That's the Bills. That's the Dolphins. We are going to dive into that and so much more. First, we got to talk about this, gentlemen. It kicks off our morning headlines. It's Zach Wilson. It's Zach Wilson and the stories that are going on with him.
Fives.
No, that's not what we're kicking the show off. We can't. That's not what we're doing. I mean, can't
Why?
we?
Why?
Why can't we kick the show off with that?
Matt,
You mad because he got with Stacy's mom and you didn't, bro? Like, what's
he
up?
is an absolute legend. He is an absolute legend. And what's great about for everyone who doesn't know, Aaron, tell us what happened with Zach Wilson and why he is taking
your favorite
over
quarterback this year.
Yeah, I mean, he was my favorite quarterback in the draft last year, and now you're starting to see why. No, so rumors, it still is a rumor. Rumors have come out. His ex-girlfriend posted on Instagram that Zach Wilson may or may not have, she says he did, slept with his mom's friend. Now, first of all, if you guys don't remember, last year, Zach Wilson's mom was all over the TV, all over social media when he was being drafted, and because she looks younger than her age. And people were all up in her social media, and Zach Wilson almost paid her to get off of social media. So there's rumors out there that Zach Wilson has been with his mom's friend, and now his ex-girlfriend that he used to be with is now with his friend and college roommate, who now plays for the Washington Commanders. So it's like this ultimate love triangle, but this dates back further than that. And this is what I wanted to bring up. Does anybody remember when he was going to his high school prom? Zach Wilson actually had two members of the cheerleading team from BYU take him to prom, and there's a picture of him out there like smiling at prom with both of them giving him a kiss. Zach Wilson is a legend, and this is why he should have been the number one overall pick over Trevor Lawrence, because although Trevor Lawrence has the beautiful locks and sunshine,
and
Zach
Wilson married.
Zach Wilson's little baby face. Hey, Zach Wilson's baby face. He pulled all the bitches from 17 years old to 77 years old. All the bitches. No,
it's great.
It's great
that he is taking over the internet, not just because the headlines, but the memes. The memes that are coming out of Zach Wilson are fantastic. My favorites really are the ones that have him and like Stifler's mom from American Pie. Oh, it is absolutely
Mekhi
great.
Becton tweeted out the TO thing saying with the tearing emoji saying that's my quarterback. Like everybody is envious of Zach Wilson.
Yeah,
I like the Drake meme where he said
Parker.
With Stifler's mom. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
That is a good one.
Yeah.
Zach Wilson has now entered in legend status, and this is only going to be his second year in the league. He already has the Hall of Fame jacket lined up, ready to go for him because he's getting in.
Can we make a point though? Like we laughing about it, it's all funny, it's haha. If you're going to make off the field news in the NFL, I'm glad for once it's not I got a DUI, killed somebody. I'm glad for once it's not I got 22 sexual assault allegations against me. That it can be laughed at because although some people may disagree with it, right? Some people may not like that. That is a personal choice in your personal life that has no life or death implications. No, I mean, this is just people having a relationship. And if she's 50 and he's 22, hey, that's their choice. But there's nothing that comes out of this that's in a real negative light. And I think that's important because we talk about those situations a lot in the NFL. And I think this is kind of a little bit, a light shed on something that's a little bit less serious.
Fun. Yeah.
There's no allegations. There's no charges. There's just great memes, great humor, and Zach Wilson punching his ticket to the Hall of Fame. Let's get into the other morning headlines, though. And this one is actually another possibly Hall of Famer in N'Keal Harry getting traded to the Chicago Bears for a 2024 7th-round pick. That is my joke of a news headline. We're starting off hot here on this show. The real headline, and this is going straight to this guy right here. Right here. I'm just going to keep you on solo here.
Yeah.
Reports from NFL Network's Mike Garafolo, there isn't a lot of optimism that the Bengals will bridge the gap between the tag and the top of the safety market for Jesse Bates, who might hold out in training camp and so on. Dylan, what's the latest from Jesse Bates camp?
Jesse Bates is living life based on a Snapchat story. He's at Turner's. He's playing softball on weekends and all that good stuff. But in all seriousness, you didn't keep the solo on. I don't know why you said it. I'm going to continue on to
share screen time.
I mean, you look at the safety. Like, safeties don't really get paid by their original teams. It's very like you see Marcus May move. You see the Jets ended up trading a Jamal Adams and stuff like that. You see safeties move because they feel that's not a position that, I need to pay him to stick around. Jesse Bates is a very talented safety, right? And you think they drafted him, that's someone they liked and they could potentially see as a future piece of that team. He's a very talented safety. He's going to make money. I think with the Cincinnati Bengals team, they realize, hey, we could allocate that to a corner so we don't have Mr. Aaron's favorite getting beat up on plays outside. So I think they could allocate that everywhere else on the defense and not lock it up to a safety, which is a nice asset to have, but a safety is not going to win you a championship. What's your take, Aaron? Come on.
Listen, I tried to tell people this when we had this conversation before the draft that Dylan's right. The fact that people don't pay safeties, people do not pay safeties in the league. However, Cincinnati is doing a disservice to their organization and their team if they don't pay Jesse Bates. And this is why. We saw them go out in the draft and go try to address the secondary. It wasn't just one guy. It wasn't just Dax Hill. Like, they've tried to incorporate a number of guys. They drafted Tyson Anderson. They drafted Cam Taylor-Britt. They were very adamant about adding pieces and not just regular pieces. Dax Hill, Cam Taylor-Britt, these are guys that are versatile pieces, right? Tyson Anderson, safety. Dax Hill played safety in college. I'm not saying they can fill Jesse Bates' role, but the writing was on the wall then when they said he might not be around. But what you're going to run into is now you run into a situation where they have to hit on those guys. If those guys don't come out this year and prove that they can be a long-term answer, then they have to pay Jesse Bates. Because if they don't, now you've taken the quarterback of a defense in an already suspect position group, and now you've eliminated that. And we've already had questions about that defense. So I think this is a pivotal moment for the Bengals. And I get it. T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, they paid the offensive lineman. Like, these guys are going to have to get paid offensively. I think it's a huge mistake if they don't pay the tag and let Jesse Bates walk. If a guy like Dax Hill or Tyson Anderson can't come in and be what Jesse Bates has been or more. And I think that's what they're going to end up doing this year. They're going to play it out. I think Jesse Bates is ultimately going to show up and have to play on the franchise tag. And if they can't, bridge the gap, and then they're looking for these young guys. Okay, do we see something in this to where we can let Jesse Bates walk at the end of the season?
They got to shoot their shot. They got to shoot their shot and save their money for those big time young stars.
Maybe they should call Zach Wilson.
Oh,
he's good at shooting his shot.
Oh my goodness, that's going to be a joke all show long because we're talking about the AFC East and the New York Jets and the rest of the Bills, the rivals, the Patriots, the Dolphins, everybody. And we kick these type of shows off with a rank this. And it's starting to develop into a special segment on this show from one AJ Johnson presenting us his list. And this episode, it's about ranking the AFC East running backs and the best fantasy options in the AFC East at the running back position. So AJ, take it over and tell us who the best running backs in fantasy are in the AFC East.
It's all Pierre Strong Jr. No, stop. All
Yes.
right. So, when we were doing the AFC West and things like that, we stuck into about 4 running backs. But once we get into the wide receivers and we were going 8 deep, and you realize a lot of these running back systems are committees and things. So I went 8 on the running backs as well. And this is my list here. Surprisingly, I started with Devin Singletary. Now, this is not something we would have felt a year or so before, but if you look at what Devin Singletary started to do as the weeks went on last season, they started to use him. Over the last 4 regular season games, he had over 15 rushes in each of those 4 games, over 20 in 3 of the 4. So I think with the new offensive system coming in, I think they plan to use him a little bit more. I'm not saying they're going to fade Josh Allen. He's going to be one of the top 2 quarterbacks this year, in my opinion. So I think Devin Singletary may get used a little bit more often, and we've been praying for that, so hopefully they listen. Moving forward, I took second, and I went Damian Harris. Chase Edmonds. We did that correct, right?
Yep.
I went Chase Edmonds. We had this conversation. I think he has RB1 potential, and as of right now, he is the starting running back in Miami, and it's coming over from the Shanahan system. They're going to be using a guy like Chase Edmonds in different ways, and we're going to talk about him a little bit later, so I'll save that. Third, I went Damian Harris. I think he's one of the safest bets here. Even last season, the way they ran him, even when he wasn't scoring, they were feeding him the ball. Without Josh McDaniels, are we sure that's the same route? I would like to think so. Belichick, run the ball, play defense. 4, I went Breece Hall. I think his talent is going to step up and overshadow Michael Carter. I mean, you can say they drafted him because they wanted a running mate for Michael Carter, and that may very well be true, but his talent is undeniable, and I think he's going to have himself a great season. So then I went Michael Carter afterwards. I think he's dynamic enough to have a couple things go right his way. Put Raheem Mostert at 6. McMahon got his guy from San Francisco, but at the same time, he could easily be 8 because who knows if he's ever going to stay healthy. He may be done by snap 3 this season. And then I went with the rookies, James Cook. I think Zach Moss is an afterthought in that offense. They drafted Cook for a reason. And then I did put Pierre Strong on this list. I think he's going to surprise a lot of people, but that is a very crowded backfield. That's a rookie flyer, and I'm taking him knowing what I've seen him do in college and the style of his run game that I really, really enjoy. So I would just say keep an eye on him. I'm not saying go grab him early or anything of that nature, but hey, if you want a flyer in the last round, Pierre Strong might be that guy in a couple leagues. So those are the 8 I went with, and I'm happy to hear some counter perspectives.
Getting a round of applause from Dylan.
Are you slow clapping for that list?
It's a slow clap.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed that list. I thought he did a great job. Aaron obviously disagrees. Throw it back up there again, Ben. I want to touch on this. Singletary, that was ballsy, but I like it, man. It shows you sometimes you got to put the plums on the table, and you really did that with your number 1 here. Singletary catches balls out of he's a good all around back, and I think that's one thing he took a jump on here. Edmonds is safe. I like what you did 4-5 with Michael Carter. Mostert's nice without injury. James Cook, I think, could be a little bit higher on this list. I'm not a big Pierre Strong guy. I think Ramondre Stevenson still has a lot to offer.
You didn't put him on the list.
Yeah, I like
Ramondre on the list.
I like him more than a Pierre Strong. But I think you did a pretty solid job on this list. I like Singletary a lot more than James Cook, which is probably where this guy's go.
Before Aaron goes, the James Cook thought process.
Mr.
Why
I
are you
wear
laughing like that?
Because they think it's you that loves James Cook a lot. It's me. It's me. James Cook should be number 1.
Oh my!
I'm kidding.
Before Aaron goes, so the James Cook thought process. A lot of people talked about how high they drafted him, and obviously they plan on using him. But the whole thought process was nobody believed they liked any of their backs because of how sparingly they used them, and really they just kind of let their passing game go scorched earth because it was working that well. But you saw Devin Singletary emerge, and they start to trust him a little bit more. James Cook is kind of one of those guys who didn't really get to showcase everything because in Georgia, they have running backs galore every single year. And if you really go back and, it's just stat watching, I think he has a lot of learning to do in the NFL. And if it's a system anywhere close to the lack of running that they had the last couple seasons, he may not get the run that we're going to see because they may workhorse Devin Singletary. And then with the Pierre Strong over Ramondre Stevenson, Vinny clarified this is overall fantasy. And I believe by the end of the year, I think Pierre Strong might be that Damian Harris number 2 guy. People will talk about James White, but I have feelings towards James White. So, but there we go.
James White.
I'll start from the back. I'll start from the bottom. The Pierre Strong being on this list is absolutely stupid. The fact that you have Pierre Strong on this graphic with a jersey number 50 F4 tells you everything you need to go.
I know AJ's love for Pierre Strong, so I had to put him on the graphic.
Pierre Strong should not be on this list. You can't have Pierre Strong over James White or Ramondre Stevenson, no matter what you feel about the James White. Ramondre Stevenson was a rookie, and he showed promise. He is firmly, in my opinion, the number 2 back behind a Damian Harris if he gets hurt. I thought he showed nothing but promise. I don't know why they would skip him and go to a Pierre Strong based on nothing. So that's number 1. Pierre Strong doesn't belong on this list. Can you bring? Yeah, based on nothing. You just skip Ramondre Stevenson based on nothing. He was productive last year.
Nothing. I mean, they brought him on the team. I mean, I'd imagine if he was to show up and show that he can do the job.
They drafted a sixth-round running back.
You mean like Elijah Mitchell?
Every team does that. But the difference between Elijah Mitchell is he was behind a guy. Raheem Mostert died. I'm sorry. But if Raheem Mostert doesn't die, guess who's getting most of the carries? It's Raheem Mostert. So now you're telling me that Pierre Strong has to have Damian Harris die, Ramondre Stevenson die, James White still is a factor. He has to have 3 things happen.
I mean, James White died
3 deaths. 3 deaths.
Died once.
3 deaths.
Honestly, I mean, that death, he's kind of old
To the point, if he sits 4th, he doesn't belong on a list of 8 in the entire division. That's all I'm saying. He sits 4th on his own team.
You know what I do with my 8th spot? I like that spot.
That's beside the point. Raheem Mostert should not be on this list. Doesn't belong on this list. Really? He should be 12th. Like, the man can't stay healthy.
It's Sony time.
Michael Carter, James Cook, those are all fine. Breece Hall's fine where he's at. I have an issue with the number 1, 2, and 3. Maybe James Cook is a little bit higher for me. But I do have a question about the number 1, AJ. I question how you can, on one end, say Chase Edmonds can be an RB1, and then on the other end, say Devin Singletary is more fantasy relevant. Because I know you're not going to sit here and tell me you think Devin Singletary is going to be an RB1 or has a chance to be an RB1. I know you don't believe that.
So I also said that it was RB1 potential. That was the words. Okay. With and
firmly in RB2.
Vinny brought this up as well. Yeah, I said it.
As soon as you messaged me this to put it in the graphic, I was like,
he asked me the question. Yeah.
Chase
and
Edmonds
I said too.
Hold on. It was originally at 3, and I was like,
no,
what the hell?
Let him finish. You shouldn't even ask him. It's his list. You should question him here on the show.
Because we're talking about Chase Edmonds later, I asked him because I didn't want to talk about Chase Edmonds if he was fading him. That's the only reason why I asked, because now you have Devin Singletary ahead of him, and yes, it means a lot because you have Chase Edmonds as a potential RB1. Does that mean you have Devin Single also as a potential RB1?
RB2. No, firmly RB2, he said. Potential RB1. How does Devin Singletary factor into that?
So when Vinny asked me about this, I said the same thing. I asked him about if this was at draft time originally, and then he clarified it was overall. Secondly, like I told him, I'll tell you as well. When we had the tiers list and we were talking about all these guys, a lot of that was on a small amount of research and a lot of feeling. I like the usage that Chase Edmonds is going to get. This list came after doing further research and seeing the ways these guys were used, seeing that Chase Edmonds won. And we can get into it. What Chase Edmonds was used in Arizona, I have to go a lot more off the trajectory and what they were planning to do with him, because in 2020, he didn't really get his shot. He burst onto the scene like Rashad Penny did, had a blow-up game that pissed everybody off. That was 19. And then 20, they used him sparingly. He got a little injured. 21, he got injured, and James Conner just ran away with that job. He's got the potential. He's got the number. He's got the skill set to fit into a McMahon's offense, but we still haven't fully seen it for an entire season. So with that, with the fact that Devin Singletary being in a system he knows, they started to show the faith in him through the last 4 games of the regular season and into the playoffs, by the way. I put that in high regard that I would imagine that they would go into this season and do the same thing. So again, it's potential, because really you look at these running backs, and while there's some talent, none of them really like jump off the page and excite you either. So I do believe that I can start this way, feel Devin Singletary can have a great season, but believe Chase Edmonds has that RB1 potential. And if Chase Edmonds ends above Devin Singletary, I have no problem being wrong there. This is where I look at it today and what my research has given me to go off of to start the season and think throughout the entirety of the year.
I want to bring up a point about Devin Singletary, and I like your like I said, I love when people put plums on the table. That's when you just got to do it. You just got to show it,
Just
right?
get to the point.
What I'm saying is,
fucking Christ.
No, I'm serious. I like the guts.
Okay, get to the point
here. Chill. I'm sitting here and I'm saying, looking at the way they used Devin Singletary towards the end of last year, yes, he looked like the lead back, right? They also did that towards the end of his rookie year. They still brought in a Zach Moss with an early pick, which makes you feel, okay, maybe they're competition, maybe they don't like him. They used Moss a lot that year, right? Now Singletary gets used. He's doing his own little thing, and they bring in an early pick again, and it makes me feel like they still don't 100% fully trust Devin Singletary.
But they also got rid of Matt Breida the third running back. And then, come on, I'm getting there. Chill. They also got rid of Matt Breida. We have all expected that they're going to fade Zach Moss. And if those are your options, are you just going to leave it to Devin Singletary? Duke Johnson being brought in isn't going to move the needle. So you still need another running back. We've talked about how there are only very few bell cow running backs left in the NFL. My other thought is, with it not being Brian Dable anymore and it moving to Ken Dorsey, I imagine there will be a slight shift of some sort in this offensive scheme. I don't think they're fading the passing game. I don't think they're holding Josh Allen back at all. But I think Ken Dorsey understands. Everybody in the NFL goes, those guys don't run the ball. We can play defense against that a little better than we have before. You have to be multifaceted. You can't just throw the ball this many years in a row and nobody ever pick up on it, in my opinion.
So let me, to Dylan's point, first of all, they were going to draft a running back no matter what. Devin Singletary is in a contract year. They're not re-signing Devin Singletary for some top running back dollars. I know this for a fact. He's not going to get paid top running back dollars. And you guys keep talking about the end of last season. And yes, they used him differently toward the end of last season. He wasn't as effective as people think. He averaged less than 4 yards a carry 3 or 4 times. I believe it was 4 times in the last 6 weeks. He wasn't averaging 4 yards a carry at all. He was getting the volume, but he was scoring touchdowns. He was very touchdown dependent towards the end of the year. He had, I believe, 6 touchdowns, 5 or 6 touchdowns the last 5 games. That is why his fantasy value improved last year. It wasn't his effectiveness. It wasn't that the Buffalo Bills were looking at him like, oh, he's some dynamic running back. It's because he was getting the touches, and there was nobody else. Zach Moss kept being deactivated, and I think this is what we're talking about when we talk about talent. When you bring in a guy like James Cook, and maybe we thought that about Zach Moss. We saw when Zach Moss ran well that rookie year, they went to him, and they didn't trust Devin Singletary. This is about if James Cook gets his opportunity on the field, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, this kid's explosive. Now you see Devin Singletary right back to the role he was, because no matter what anybody feels, there has been a lack of trust in that backfield for the past 4 to 5 seasons. And I don't know how we can put Devin Singletary. And again, I'm not mad that Devin Singletary is at the top of this list. I'm going to the AJ's point of, if I think Chase Edmonds is that dude in Miami, which I personally do. I told you I was on board with your Chase Edmonds take. I think that Chase Edmonds in that offense is going to get more opportunity to stand out because of the guys that are behind him, because of the lack of talent, the injuries and all that, to be the lead guy than Devin Singletary is throughout the year. Number one, because Josh Allen is going to vulture most touchdowns around the red zone. And so Devin Singletary having 5 touchdowns in the last few weeks, that's not common. He had 2 the first 14 weeks of the season. And then all of a sudden he has 5
in the running game.
but that's the point. It's not that they were inept. They just refused to run the football because of what Josh Allen brings. They run it with him. I don't see that changing. This is what's been successful for the Bills. I'm not saying they're not going to run a little bit more, but let's not forget, they still didn't win. Yeah. This is still Josh Allen's team, and this is still Josh Allen who's making 40. We keep saying this every year about quarterbacks. Patrick Mahomes, they need to run the ball more. Do they do it? Nope. They just don't. Like, philosophy-wise, these guys want the ball in the hands of the guy that's making $40 million. It's not just these powerhouse teams. It's all these teams. Russell Wilson when he was with Seattle, Dak Prescott in Dallas. Like, they want to throw the football with the guys they're paying $40 million to. And I don't see that changing.
Yeah. Last point to your Raheem Mostert thought process. I wanted to believe that full-heartedly. I wanted to slot him in at 8 and just call it a day. But they brought him over for a reason. That was his guy. He went and got his guys. He let go of people who were on that team to bring in hurt Raheem Mostert for some reason. I don't think it's to sit there. I don't. Now, again, he's on the lower half. I don't think he's going to be an RB1, 2, maybe not even a 3.
Raheem Mostert has played 7 years in the NFL.
I understand.
He is averaging 200 yards a year. He has a total of 1,400 yards in 7 years.
But his first 3 seasons, he wasn't even a factor, though. Like, he didn't play. I mean,
take out the first 3.
There's so many.
First of all, he played 11 games in 2017. Well, you're right. He didn't touch the ball. But again, you can even just take the 2 years that he played in 24 games. 24 games, he had 1,200 yards.
I think
he's got juice though.
As the RB2 in that backfield, I don't think it's Raheem Mostert. I think it's Sony Michel. That's
this
my
backfield
take.
Sucks.
Sony Michel was. I'm not saying in terms of fantasy relevance. I don't think Raheem Mostert's draftable. I don't think Sony Michel's draftable. But I think if you're to pick an RB2 in this Miami Dolphins backfield, it is Sony Michel. Let's not forget he didn't play that bad at the tail end of the season for the Los Angeles Rams. Not saying he's going to be that great. I'm just saying he was going to be the RB2. That's
Sony Michel is light years ahead of Raheem Mostert.
Is there a chance Michel gets cut?
No.
Someone's got to get cut.
Mostert comes into that offense because he's familiar. That's why. It's not, hey, we expect you to come in and do something. You see this all the time in the NFL. Coaches go, they bring players, good veterans that can teach the young guys that know an offense. That's why Raheem Mostert is on the Dolphins, because he had a coach he knows, and he's given him an opportunity. Mostert, we got to stop with Raheem Mostert every year. I can't do it. I can't.
Edmonds is the only one safe in that backfield.
Let's shift here. Let's shift here. We talked about the running backs, and we talked heavily about Devin Singletary and what that Buffalo Bills backfield is looking like. Let's talk about the receivers. Obviously, we know Stephon Diggs in Buffalo is the wide receiver 1 for Josh Allen. But Aaron, you have been on the show very high. You've been very high on Gabe Davis. Seems like the entire fantasy community is very high on Gabe Davis. But what can you tell us that is different than what all the other talking heads are saying about Gabe Davis? What is truly special about him in fantasy this year that makes him a must-draft type of player?
It's opportunity. And I don't think it's different than what people are saying. This is what we expect. He's been battling Emmanuel Sanders, Cole Beasley, just guys that have just been thrown out there. We're talking about a guy that's played about 50% of the offensive snaps as a receiver, and he's led the league the last 3 years in red zone opportunities, in red zone targets. And he plays 50% of the snaps. So you put this guy on the other side of a Stephon Diggs who draws double coverage, and you have a quarterback that is this physical freak of a Josh Allen. I think you see what we saw in the playoffs last year. We're talking about an explosive player. This is not somebody that's just, he's in an opportunistic situation. You're talking about a guy that's an explosive player. Gabe Davis was explosive in college. He's been explosive his entire time in the NFL. This is somebody that is going to make a difference. And I think, what is he, wide receiver 31? Somewhere around there, wide receiver 30. I think is just a disservice to where he's going to end up finishing. I told you guys before, I think he could end up touching like middle of wide receiver 2, maybe wide receiver 1 numbers. And that's not a joke. And I'm not saying he's going to overtake Stephon Diggs. But when you start separating Stephon Diggs having 110 catches and maybe Gabriel Davis having 14 to 15 touchdowns with 70 to 80 catches, I might be leaning to Gabe Davis's way at the draft value that you're going to get him at. So all I can say is I'm all in. I shoved all my chips in the middle of the table because Gabe Davis is going to be on a lot of my fantasy teams.
So you're thinking we could be seeing something like what Jamar Chase, the T Higgins, and like those type of receiving groups these for fantasy where both wide receivers are arguably wide receiver ones, if not fringe wide receiver twos. Like that's what we could possibly be seeing out of Gabe Davis.
Yeah, I like Gabe Davis having a year like Mike Williams had last year.
Ooh, the random Will Fuller year. Nice little throw him out there.
Well, yeah, half a year for Will Fuller, but I mean, again, this is coming from you. I don't think people really remember how good he was at UCF. Like he was an absolute. He was a playmaker.
I remember the Full Sail package too, talking about Gabe Davis.
Oh my God. He was a dog. Like he has the talent, and there's no better offense to be in than an offense that throws the ball a ton with a quarterback that just don't give a bleep and is going to throw you the football. And now we don't have the guys in the way. There's no guys in the way to keep Gabe Davis off the field, and that's the biggest thing. He was off the field a lot, and I think now with the percentage of snaps he's going to play in that volume, I don't think you can miss. Let's just say that. Based on his ADP right now, I don't think he can miss.
That was the take I was going to go with that route of, I mean, look, you're losing Cole Beasley and also Emmanuel Sanders, guys that took away that opportunity. Now he's at 2, no matter what. I mean, Jamison Crowder's probably his only competition, and that dude's old and washed, and he'll be in the slot. And, I mean, he's going to be on the opposite side. He's going to be on the field a ton. And the upside's there. Maybe Dawson Knox hurts a little bit, but I think he's still a pretty solid wide receiver, and he can put up good numbers this year. I'm with you.
A real quick question here. AJ, I'll send this to you. Dawson Knox, Dylan just brought him up and possibly taking some targets here. Right now, he's going as the tight end 10, and we know how flowy the tight end rankings can be, and you might end up seeing one of these tight ends who's maybe 8 or 9 or maybe 10 slide into the top 5. Do you think Dawson Knox has that potential of being a top 5 tight end this season?
I think you might have some top 5 weeks. I don't think overall. I mean, you can talk about the guys who are locked in at the top, Kelsey, Andrews. A lot of people say Kyle Pitts. You can add Darren Waller and George Kittle there. I mean, those are the 5 names that come to mind. If you want to battle him somewhere at that 6 and 5 spot, you're now talking about a Hawkinson. There's still a lot of potential in Goddard. That offense in Arizona is explosive with Zach Ertz and can have some opportunities. I just think there's a lot of people between 5 and 10 that he would have to battle. Now, he had some good weeks last year, and then he got injured. So we honestly didn't see the full potential of him. But I don't know about an overall top 5, but I think he can be inside that top 10 and closer to it. But I don't think inside the top 5.
That's fair. Let's move on to the New England Patriots here. And there's obviously not a whole lot of relevancy with this Patriots offense. There's Mac Jones. He's not fantasy relevant. Then there's the wide receivers. Jacoby Myers we might talk about him. But Dylan, we discussed Damian Harris a little bit in the beginning of the show with the running backs. Right now, he's just going outside as RB28. Do you think Damian Harris could be a RB2 this season?
No, because Pierre's strong. No, I'm about it. I'm all aboard Mr. D Harris. I know I like him a lot. I think they're going to use him. His contract's coming to an end here soon. His tenure in New England will probably be ending up here soon, which might be why they took a flyer on a 6th round back and strong. They also got Stevenson. They have a loaded backfield, and sometimes that might scare people away. But you got to understand, Damian Harris was that dude last year. When he was on the field, he was all over the place. He put up solid numbers. He was able to hit holes and basically have those big runs and also score touchdowns. He's going to carry this team. And I know they say they want to throw more and break open the shell a little bit of Mac Jones a little bit and throw the ball. And I know they got so many weapons, and Devontae Parker among many on the offensive side. On the outside, Mr. Aaron loves them. But, I do think Damian Harris is still going to be a solid running back, top 24. I think he's right around 24-ish. He's not going to be a top 10 guy, but he'll put up numbers that still make him a solid RB2, RB1. Yeah, RB2.
Dylan, Damian Harris or Miles Sanders?
Did my computer freeze, or are you guys not talking?
Okay, I was like, did you freeze?
Did you hear what I said? Damian Harris or Miles Sanders?
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear that. I'm going to go with Mr. Damian Harris. I think he scores more touchdowns.
Okay. Damian Harris or AJ Dillon?
Damian Harris. More volume.
Okay. Damian Harris or Elijah Mitchell?
I hate Elijah Mitchell.
These are all running backs going ahead.
I look at the list. Right I got the same list pulled up right now. Antonio Gibson.
Well, I'm not going to go down. I mean, there's some that like I know your answer. Like, I'm not going to throw out Damian Harris or Clyde. I know how much you hate Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So that one would just be like, yeah, I'm aware of these running backs that you actually dislike. So I'm not trying to give you the easy ones. Aaron, what do you have to say?
I kind of disagree. I think Damian Harris is going to be the guy. But last year, Damian Harris was, sensational, right? He had 15 touchdowns. Is Damian Harris going to score 15 touchdowns again this year? I don't think so. I don't know if the Patriots offense is going to score 15 touchdowns.
Oh, my gosh.
And we're talking – you can say, oh, my gosh, all you want, but we watched a team that refused to throw the football in a game just because they were trying to protect themselves from Mac Jones. And when Mac Jones was asked to go win games, he can't do it. I don't care what nobody says. He can't do it. We saw that in the playoff game when he did nothing but throw picks. This is a team that doesn't have an offensive identity right now. We could talk about them. They wanted to run the football and run play action. They don't have the weapons on the outside to do that. They have to turn around and hand the ball off 35 times. And if we're saying they're going to open up the offense, then what does that do? Damian Harris ain't going to catch passes. That's going to be James White. He doesn't. Maybe Pierre Strong comes in and catches passes, but I know it's not going to be Damian Harris. And so I think we have to temper the expectations a little. Talk about touchdown dependent. This isn't Jonathan Taylor running behind the Colts offensive line with a good offense and a good team and a great defense. Like, this is the New England Patriots we're talking about, who they've done nothing.
We don't even know who their offensive coordinator is.
They don't have one. We do. It's they said what's his name's going to call plays.
It's Matt Judge,
Griffin Murphy.
Patricia.
Yeah, Patricia. I think Patricia's calling plays, which is insane because
he's a DC.
Guy, I thought.
What?
But listen.
Yeah,
the point about New England.
Judge.
The point about New England is the fact that they don't have an identity right now. Their identity is with the Raiders. That's been their identity. Everybody gives the credit to Belichick, but Belichick is not an offensive guy. Belichick never ran an offense. Belichick was a defensive coordinator with Cleveland and a head coach, a defensive coordinator with the Giants, and then he became a head coach in New England and always had offensive guys. Charlie Weiss. Charlie Weiss was an excellent play caller in college and in the NFL. The guy with the Texans. And then now you talk about Josh McDaniels. Like, he's always had offensive play callers running that offense. Now you're asking somebody who's never done it to take over. I worry about that entire offense. I don't want none of them. I don't want any offensive player from the New England Patriots on my fantasy team.
Screw you for bringing up Fat Chucky.
Charlie Weiss was great for Notre Dame. I don't know why you sit there and act like why are you? He was great for Notre Dame.
Ran his ass out of town. Brian Kelly actually did something.
And now he's at LSU. All right. So, but I was going to go into that route with talking about the receivers in New England, and I agree. I don't think that there is any receiver that I want on my fantasy team. I think it's Damian Harris, and then I'll see if I can get Ramondre Stevenson at a value pick, and that's it. Like, that's all that I'm going for in terms of this Patriots offense. Because can you trust Jacoby Myers? Like, is that a player that you can put any type of
Devontae Parker?
You could you can't.
No, you can't.
God.
How do you trust guys on that offense, the receiving corps, when Mac Jones is going to throw for 3,400 yards?
How do you know? You don't know their identity.
3,400 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 12 picks or something. 12 or 14.
You don't know. This is the guy that made Devontae Smith was good, but he put up numbers in college.
This ain't college football.
I know.
Did Mac Jones throw anywhere close to 60 touchdowns like he did in college football last year? This is not college football.
I know it's not. But I'm saying, like, he's capable of having a wide receiver one.
But I don't think that this. Wait, a wide receiver one?
What?
No, not this year. I'm saying, like, he can give a wide receiver value. is what I'm trying
Put it
to
this
say.
way. So last year, Mac Jones threw for 3,800 yards, 22 touchdowns, and 13 picks. So say they open up the offense more and he throws more. Now he throws for, say, 4,500 yards, throws 28 touchdowns and maybe 16 or 17 picks because he's throwing the ball more now. That offense – well, go ahead.
No. Sorry, finish.
That offense has Jacoby Myers, Nelson Aguilar, Kendrick Bourne, Devontae Parker, Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith. It's going to be so spread out. Their number one receiver last year was Jacoby Myers. You know what he had? He was wide receiver 43, had 800 yards and 2 touchdowns.
How many catches?
First 2 touchdowns of his career.
He had 83 catches. So 83 catches.
I thought that. I didn't think it was that high.
83 catches, 800 yards, and 2 touchdowns, and he would finish wide receiver 43. And you're saying they're going to have a wide receiver 1?
If those 83 balls go to a healthy Devontae Parker, that's a 1,000-yard year, and he's a solid wide receiver. You can't deny that, Aaron.
I also think anybody else would have had at least 3 or 4 more touchdowns. I don't know why Jacoby Myers was like allergic to the end zone either. But other than that,
so what you guys are arguing is from wide receiver 43 to wide receiver 32. 33.
No. I'm just
That's what we're talking
saying.
about.
No. One, I'm just saying, and I hate when y'all make me do this. This is how all of a sudden I became a Carson Wentz lover. I just don't like your dislike for Mac Jones. Like, I don't like your.
It's fantasy football, AJ. This is fantasy football. I don't want a guy that throws 22 touchdowns and 13 interceptions and throws for 3,800 yards. With no weapons on his offense.
But on the same hand, and maybe not you, but so many other people say, "Oh, I'd have Trevor Lawrence in a heartbeat," and he threw 17 touchdowns. I don't understand why, if they open up the offense more, a guy with the football IQ of Mac Jones can't throw more touchdowns and less interceptions. Just because he threw 13 last year doesn't mean he has to throw more this year. No. We're talking about fantasy relevance. Nobody's taking Trevor Lawrence and saying that's fantasy relevant guy this year. Nobody. I disagree.
Who is doing that?
And it's not me. They were drafting him like hotcakes because his name is T-Law, bro.
What do you mean they're drafting him like hotcakes?
People are talking about
he's being drafted as quarterback. He's being drafted as quarterback 18.
It's also July.
So what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Like, people are after him. Like nobody's after him.
So it's conversations I haven't been
low-key becoming a Jags fan.
We're not talking dynasty here. We're not talking dynasty.
I took that away.
So my point was there are no fantasy relevant options. We are talking a redraft.
I'm also not lobbying to draft Trevor Lawrence either. I am just talking about in the generality of the entire
what is me saying a guy that throws 3,800 yards and 22 touchdowns saying don't draft him, don't draft anybody on that team because he's not fantasy relevant? How is that wrong? It's not. He's not relevant.
I also would say that there isn't a Jags pass catcher that I would be comfortable like Christian Kirk or Marvin Jones. Like, I'm not comfortable. I'm just as not comfortable drafting a Jaguars pass catcher as I am not comfortable drafting a Patriots pass catcher, to be completely honest.
I don't think it's about comfort about who you're drafting. We're talking about the talent level. I'm sorry. I don't care what anybody thinks. Kendrick Bourne, Nelson Aguilar don't come close to the talent level of a Marvin Jones and a Christian Kirk. Devontae Parker, we can argue because I do believe Devontae Parker is talented. My question about him would be staying on the field, right?
Yeah.
So he has the talent. And I was going to answer your point, Dylan. I do think that if those 83 targets go to Devontae, or 83 balls are in Devontae Parker's hands, that might be a fantasy relevant season. My question is, I don't think 83 balls get in his hand because of that offense.
I don't either, but I said if those balls are in his hands.
They don't feature an outside wide receiver like that. They never have. Randy Moss has been the only one, and we're talking about arguably the greatest receiver to ever play the game. They do not feature outside receivers.
Since Tom Brady's moved on, they've tried. It's just failed miserably. You know, like you miserably.
Who have they tried?
The Josh Gordon failed miserably. N'Keal Harry failed miserably. Nelson Aguilar, and he's not a big body, but they had him on the outside, failed miserably. So now you bring in a Devontae Parker who has shown some talent, but as we have said, can't stay on the field. Could be another try. Could also be another failed miserably.
Aaron, you one crazy man. You one crazy man.
Young quarterbacks, we always talk about it. Middle of the field, tight ends, running backs, slot guys. So first, because that's how they read a defense. It's the easiest thing to read. It's right in front of you. So I'm sorry if I'm not excited about the outside guys of the New England Patriots, because I don't think Mac Jones, as smart as he is, it's the NFL. This ain't college smart. This is NFL smart. And he hasn't seen enough NFL defenses.
I'll say this last thing. Respectfully, I will have the Mac Jones. I can't stand your hate for him when we talk real football, because in fantasy, yes, I was not lobbying to draft him, but that may be a more real football conversation in the season, because that's where I just
it's not hate. It's not hate.
Oh, it's hate.
You've
used the word hate.
I hate where he was drafted. So he will always be held to the standard of a first-round draft pick to me. And I don't care. Any first-round draft pick, if you don't live up to that, I'm gonna criticize you. This is not about Mac Jones not being able to play football. He's not there to play football. He is there to be a franchise quarterback. If he does not prove that, then it was a bust. It's a wasted pick. I'll say the same thing about Zach Wilson. I'll say the same thing about Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, any of those guys. I said it about Carson Wentz. It's not the situation like a Dak Prescott where you're drafted in the 4th round.
Right.
Those expectations aren't the same. So when you're drafted in the 1st round, you have an expectation to live up to. Mac Jones will be held to that expectation, and he's got to prove me wrong. He's got to prove to me that he's a franchise guy. I don't believe
Brandon LaFell, Malcolm Mitchell. Dude, you're really messing with my head right now. These outside guys don't work.
They do not feature outside wide receivers in New England.
Crazy.
The one player has been an exception. Even when Deion Branch was great. Deion Branch was a PPR monster. He worked all over the field. He was not a guy that was just line up outside and say, go get it. Their offense has never featured it. It didn't matter what offensive coordinator they've been in.
That's nuts.
Let's shift on over to the Miami Dolphins here. And Dylan, while your mind is still being blown, I need you to answer this question for me. How does Tua impact Tyreek Hill's fantasy season? Obviously, Tyreek Hill now coming over. Yeah, I went there. How does Tua impact Tyreek Hill's fantasy season?
You know that TikTok sound that goes, oh no, oh no, oh no. Well, that's what you got here. Tua Tagovailoa last year, albeit, once again, he can't stay on the field. You know how I feel about him towards that. This guy, he doesn't throw a lot of deep balls. Last year, you look at his quarterback stats when he threw a deep ball. He only threw 6 balls over 40 yards. And I know that'll probably change when you get a speedster like Tyreek Hill, or maybe if you had a Will Fuller healthy last year, you could throw it deep. He's more of a slant guy to his boy Jalen Waddle and other pieces on their offense that he throws it around to. I think that's more of his forte. So looking at a Tyreek Hill here, I think it does hurt his value immensely. And I don't think that this will be a great relationship fantasy football-wise. He'll have his big weeks. Occasionally he'll take a slant to the house. He'll connect on one of those deep balls, which, like I said, only 6 balls over 40 yards last year. Matthew Stafford led it with 18. But, I mean, you look at just throwing balls out like that, I know he's a track star, he's a speedster, he can get past any defense, whatever. I don't think Tua has that, let me get it out and sling it down the field to him, that mentality or that capability to do so on an accurate basis. I know he's an accurate passer more in the short game than anything. I question his deep ball abilities with someone like a Tyreek Hill.
So is Tyreek Hill still a wide receiver 1 with Tua throwing him the ball?
Oof. A very inconsistent wide receiver 1.
So back half wide receiver 1, like a 11, 12.
Maybe a fringe like 2. Like he might be a 2 fringe 1, I think. That's where I think he's placed with the Tua Tagovailoa. Why?
You're insane.
Tell me why I'm stupid.
You're not stupid. You're insane. To only attribute this is honestly the Tyreek Hill argument from like 3 years ago. To only attribute Tyreek Hill's fantasy value of deep completions is absolutely insane. I don't know, but the last time I watched Tyreek Hill, he caught I believe an 8-yard pass and went 80 yards running by everybody against the Bills. And you're looking at this, even the highlights now, there's so many ways to get a guy like this involved. And you mentioned another guy on the team who is arguably just as fast and dynamic as Tyreek Hill. His name is Jalen Waddle. And did that seem to have an impact on Jalen Waddle catching a number of passes, he struggled with run after the catch last year? You give Tyreek Hill 101 catches. I don't care where they're at on the field. He is going to be a wide receiver 1, probably wide receiver number 2 or 3 overall. This whole Tyreek Hill is going to fall because Tua. I honestly think Tyreek Hill benefits from this type of offense. He's not reliant on just going down the stretch, middle of the field, and has to catch deep balls. He's going to get a lot of slants, a lot of bubble screens, a lot of reverses, a lot of balls in his hands at the line of scrimmage. And when he has the ball in his hands, there is not, and I'm going to say this very clear, there is not one player, not a one in the NFL that scares me more than Tyreek Hill.
Now, let me ask this question here that we obviously saw last year in San Francisco. Now, I don't know how much of this was Mike McDaniel or how much was this Kyle Shanahan, but we saw in San Francisco last year the usage of Deebo Samuel. Obviously, two different styles of players where Deebo plays that hard physical style. They still used him in a lot of like end around plays. They used him in a whole bunch of different packages. Do you think that kind of transfers over to the Dolphins and what Mike McDaniel is going to be bringing? And now with Tyreek Hill, like that helps Tyreek Hill's cause to be arguably the best wide receiver in fantasy football this year, Aaron?
No. I guess I want to say no. I don't think it has. I think the two are not, they're not the same. I think it's two different things. I think you're talking about a guy in Deebo Samuel who, let's be honest, we talk about his rushing, but he had 1,400 yards receiving on 77 catches. A lot of what he did was those bubble screens, those quick slants. That part of the game, I think you're going to continue to see from the Dolphins. I think they've already done that. That kind of fits what Tua has been doing. But I don't think McDaniel is going to look at Tyreek Hill and say, I'm going to use him, or I see him doing what Deebo did. I think it's two different players. Do I think he gets involved in the run game? Yeah, some reverses. But I think Waddle does as well. But I just don't want to be so quick to say Tua doesn't throw the ball deep. Well, when has Tua had guys to throw the ball deep? They didn't use Jalen Waddle that way last year. And let's not forget, when Tua was coming out of college, he was arguably the best deep ball thrower we had seen in a very, very long time. Like his accuracy, everybody talked about the deep ball. So I would kind of pump the brakes on that conversation. But I think Tyreek Hill is Tyreek Hill. You give Tyreek Hill 100+ targets and around 75 to 90, anywhere from 75 to 90 catches, he's going to have 1,400 yards. And, you know, if he gets in the end zone 9-10 times, so it's a wide receiver 1 year. I don't – maybe it's not wide receiver 1. Maybe it's wide receiver 7 or 8 like he was last year, which was a bad year for Tyreek Hill.
Not sure.
With your Deebo question, I'll be super quick. I think that's part of the reason they brought in Chase Edmonds as well. Not to be Deebo, but so Tyreek doesn't have to be either. You know, you get two guys who can be shifty, who can be quick, who can be one-cut guys and do a lot of the bubble screen, a lot of the swing passes, and run the ball. Then you don't have to do it all for one guy. You have multiple guys that can do that. You can spread the wealth and keep them healthy.
Okay, I'll take my L here. Good takes.
Well, I mean, it's just hard. Tyreek Hill hasn't been less than wide receiver 8. And I know he's had Patrick Mahomes, but even in down years where he's only had like 75, 1,107, that was wide receiver 8.
Played some with Matt Moore and also Alex Smith too, and he still put up numbers.
Tua last year had the second best. He was the second most accurate quarterback with passes over 20 yards with at least 20 attempts, just behind Justin Herbert. So he's a
Dylan
great.
Had to go 40 yards to discredit Tua.
Yeah.
Like they use in the NFL. But when it's 40 yards, he's not that accurate.
Let's end this on the New York Jets here. And AJ, we started the show off talking about your running backs and your view on them. And we're gonna end the show talking about your running backs. And this New York Jets backfield, obviously, Michael Carter, Breece Hall. I do remember some shows, Aaron, you were not so happy about the draft position of Breece Hall. AJ, what do you think this backfield looks like in terms of fantasy with Hall and with Carter?
I think they start out going with Carter. He knows the system. He's been in the NFL. He's got a year under his belt. He's done some nice things for this Jets offense. But when I look at the talent of Breece Hall and what he's able to do, I think he's got better vision than Michael Carter. I think he's a little stronger than Michael Carter. And I think he's got more breakaway speed than Michael Carter. You look at what Breece Hall did in the last 2 seasons, rushed for 3,000 yards over the last 2 seasons at Iowa State, 41 touchdowns over the last 2 seasons at Iowa State. Those are the numbers of a type of guy that, yes, it was in college, and yes, it was Iowa State, but those are the numbers of a guy you expect to come in the NFL. And I'm not saying he's going to run for 1,500 and, 15 touchdowns his first year, but I think he's got a solid chance to be close to 1,000 his first year. I think he's got a solid chance to have 8+ touchdowns his first year. And if this offense, from what we've seen them do in the offseason, in the draft and free agency, what we've seen them do to this team, if we expect them to take an uptick like a lot of people think, I mean, I think he's going to be a solid part of it. I don't think he's left in the dust. I don't think you jog him back across the Vegas Strip to walk on the stage to be like, well, that was your moment in the sun, buddy. So I don't think Michael Carter will be faded, but I do think part of drafting a guy like Breece Hall in the second round was because they did have question marks about what they saw out of Michael Carter last season. So I think you're another running back by committee. That's what the NFL is going to these days. They want to save them while using them for their contract years before they dump them all at the same time.
And I do like this offensive line that they're running behind too. Like not saying like Connor McGovern is like a big time name, but I mean Mekhi Becton, if he comes back and plays to the level that he's been known to play at, Elijah Vera-Tucker's not a bad guard. You throw in the signing of Laken Tomlinson. This offensive line I feel like is good to run behind for these two to be fantasy relevant. Dylan, you were kind of given a face when maybe not a bad face, but you were giving some type of reaction face to what AJ was saying. Elaborate.
It was on. Elaborate. Tell me more. Good question there, kid. AJ always he says he said 8 touchdowns. Do you mean like I question? I think 8 might be a little steep for one specific running back here. I was thinking maybe total touchdowns. I could see Breece.
Yeah,
but Breece Hall rookie year. Okay, total. Okay, I'll get on board with that. 8 rushing from a rookie. I don't know, but I think the 1-2 punch is nice. You got this is the Carter. Lil Wayne jokes back there. And then you also got Breece Hall. So I think the 1-2 are beautiful there. They play off each other well. Carter actually was pretty solid in the receiving game last year too. He had pretty solid hands. I'm curious to see how they use both of the backs, but I think both of them will provide value, and there goes the host.
I mean, you got to stop your take. But I mean, Aaron, you look like you were going to be upset with both of us. So.
I would not upset. I just worry about when we start labeling how many touchdowns we're going to give a player. 8 touchdowns is a lot.
Potential
and I know it doesn't seem like a lot because it's only 8, but 8 touchdowns that's a great season for a player. And I'm not sure how many players rushed for 8 touchdowns last year, but I think 8 touchdowns is a stretch for.
We were doing so well.
It's okay, Dylan. How many players last year had 8 touchdowns or more?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 running backs rushed for 8.
14 running backs rushed for 8 or more touchdowns last year. Aaron, it looks like you're kind of back. You're definitely back.
Says I'm back.
You're back.
To
my point, I just find it as somebody that's in a running back by committee, which I do believe it will be some kind of running back by committee on a team that hasn't proven to score very many touchdowns. I think you're in a situation where both these guys are going to be hard to trust. I do agree. I think Breece Hall is going to be the lead guy there. I think Michael Carter is going to get faded a lot. But I do think Michael Carter will be used in the pass game. And I know Breece Hall is capable, but I think when it comes to passing down situations, I think they're going to give it to Michael Carter just because they want to get both guys involved. So you might see a situation where Breece Hall is that first and second down guy. Michael Carter comes in, gets the third down stuff. Breece Hall gets the goal line carries, and Breece Hall finishes as a higher flex than Michael Carter. I don't want to say Kenyon Drake, Chase Edmonds.
Your connection doesn't want to say it either.
In Arizona, but it could be.
I looked at that list that I just pulled up a second ago. Not too many committees had 8+ rushing touchdowns. I guess Melvin Gordon's were one of them. The other one that was kind of close. Oddly enough, this guy had 7 touchdowns last year for Mr. Boston Scott. He put 7 in pay dirt.
No Miles Sanders. I mean, a lot more usage than
he still has never played a game against the Giants in which he hasn't rushed for a touchdown. That's nuts.
Unbelievable. What a stat. And honestly, that's perfect. That's perfect. He brought up Boston Scott, and perfect that he brought up Miles Sanders, and perfect he brought up the Giants, because on next show tomorrow morning, we're going to be breaking down the NFC East and their fantasy outlooks. We're done talking about the AFC East for this evening, or for this morning, I should say.
So close.
So close. I was so close. But we will be back again tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Eastern time right here on YouTube. AJ, pay the bills before we get on out. Chia.
There was a point in time where I didn't think this day would come. Ladies and gentlemen, I knew you guys would come to the city that is Sac City Pod on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. We appreciate the love. We appreciate the support. And the only way we see that is when you hit those love and support buttons. So like, share, comment, argue, laugh. Any emoji you want to put on there, except like them angry ones or like the poo-poo ones. Stay away from those. We don't need those.
Let's fill the comments with poo-poo emojis.
Our city clean. This ain't y'all. This ain't just shit everywhere. We clean up here. Sac City, baby. Come on over to the city. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Hit that subscribe. Hit that like. And sit your ass down in front of a laptop, a TV, wherever you want to be. Every Wednesday through Friday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern. Good morning, Sac City. #GMSC.
We'll be back again tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern time, talking NFC East and their fantasy outlooks. For my best friend Aaron Mukes, for the valedictorian Dylan Kearns, and for your boy AJ Johnson, I am me. We will see you tomorrow.
Peace out.
Bye.
We are a much better team if we came up and represented ourselves. That's what we call a sack lunch.